Well, Program Director, Ms. Lebo Mashile, the President of the Black Management Forum, Mr. Mngali Mthunzi, the Deputy President of BMF, Mr. Dumisani Mpafa, the Managing Director of BMF, Ms. Busisiwe Mavuso, BMF Directors, former Presidents, the Honorable Minister of Arts and Culture, Minister Nathi Mthethwa, and his dear wife, Ms. Philisiwe Mthethwa, the CEO of Transnet, Mr. Siyabonga Gama, the CEO of Standard Bank, Mr. Sim Chabalala, the Public Protector, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, and I dare not forget my dear wife, my great source of support, Mapifo. Greetings to you all. Mr. Mthunzi threw a challenge at me. And maybe before I tell you what it is, let me just express my gratitude to him and BMF for having afforded me the opportunity to contribute to the transformation agenda that they have chosen to embark on for the benefit of South Africans, and also congratulate them on 40 years of existence. Believing that everybody has by now accepted that I'm a Christian and a pastor, I'm sure I can give some biblical example without risking castigation. For 40 years, Moses and the Israelites were in the desert en route to the promised land, the land of milk and honey. And I venture to say the River Jordan is about to open up so that BMF can take Black South Africans across to the land of milk and honey. This, in a nutshell, is the challenge that the president of BMF threw at me after I had accepted the invitation to come and speak here. He said the core business of BMF is to break all barriers that stands between black people and justice, all barriers that stands in the way of the advancement of black people. He did not confine that mandate to those who happen to be in managerial positions or in leadership positions. So when I speak broader than the ordinary mandate that you've come to understand of BMF, don't think that I'm reading from a wrong script. It is precisely because it is to the open-ended mandate that I've been called upon to speak. And just to guide my presentation of my speech, he also said that BMF is a champion of transformation in South Africa. And that transformative agenda, I didn't understand it to be confined to black managers. I understood it to be much wider than that. He told me that they stand for good and ethical leadership. So there are a number of issues that I've been called upon to speak to, and I will attempt to do so as I begin. When you celebrate, as does BMF now, you will as far as I'm concerned, do well to reflect in passing on the gains and spend more time on the work that is yet to be done. This is how I seek to inspire myself on a daily basis in relation to how to re-energize myself and sharpen my focus in pursuit of the greater goal that I believe patriotic South Africans are pursuing. My starting point always is this. What a privilege that at the time when many laid their lives down so that South Africa can be free, and actually died in big numbers, that I am still alive to enjoy the benefits not just of their toil and sweat, but the benefits that flow from their blood that was shed for me. What a sacrifice. That when many family lives were destroyed, when many were forced to abandon the educational opportunities that I and many others were privileged to pursue, so that we can be free. I'm not one of those who lost them. I am here. I'm Chief Justice. For what? Just to be called honorable? Just to occupy a position? Just to earn some relatively good money and the fringe benefits that come with it? Is that what they died for? By the way, in case people misunderstand where I'm coming from, this is not politics. This is Constitution speak. Read the preamble, it tells the story. One of the things that the president of BMF said was that thought leadership is one of the responsibilities that they've taken upon themselves to shoulder in the area of land ownership or land restitution, whichever way you look at it. Is it not one of the responsibilities that BMF and many other organizations should begin to sharpen their capacity with a view to finding solutions to? For how long do we want to blame government for everything? Is it not our government? Did we not say in the preamble to our Constitution, whether you contributed to its crafting or not, did we not say, we, the people of South Africa, believe that South Africa belongs to all who live in it, divided, I beg your pardon, united in our diversity? Maybe it's because we are largely divided that divided dropped onto my tongue. The laziest thing you can ever choose to do is adopt the position of a critic or a fault finder. I call those who spend most of their time criticizing specialist fault finders. A thought leader ought to remember that where we come from is rather too painful to go back to. We don't want at any stage in our future for generations after us to say one of the major things that our people fought for and composed songs about was the land. Now, they are bound to ask a question. Where is that land? A few years ago, I wrote a judgment, Agri SA, and if you read the introduction, it says 13% of the land is in the hands of 87%, and 87% of the land is in the hands of 13. It's true. But beyond being critical, what is it that we do on a daily basis to pour our minds into addressing the problem? What solution have we brought to the fore to avoid the deaths and the sufferings that I've alluded to avoid even some of the experiences in jurisdictions not too far from where we are that could possibly have been handled better had thought leaders encapsulated the solution or finding a solution to the land issue as one of their key responsibilities. So the challenge, Mr. President and BMF and all South Africans is this. I put it to you, that challenge, because I put it to myself on a daily basis as a patriotic South African. Let's find an effective way, effective strategies, practical solutions to the land issue. It's a thorny issue, it's an emotive issue, it's a very, very serious issue. I had occasion not so long ago when Weber Wenzel were occupying their new building in Sandton to address them. It was a huge contingent of my white compatriots there, from the corporate sector and even from the legal profession. And I put the same question to them. Said, you are people of influence. The time for spin doctoring over the land issue is gone. To say that there is a lot of land in the hands of government that is yet to be distributed is spin doctoring that can only go so far in addressing the hunger that South Africans have for the land. So black and white South Africans must put their heads together, and even their hands, to look for a lasting and peaceful solution to the land issue. The economy. The economy. One of the reasons why people are happy, even heads of states, to shake the hand of Bill Gates is because he has money. He is a meaningful participant not only in the economy of his country, but the economy of the world. Meaning, until black people graduate from feeding on the crumbs of the economy, but pierce through the corporate veil that has for many years denied them the opportunity to occupy the commanding heights of the economy, there isn't much influence that will be able to bring about. It is good to want to be in managerial positions as women and black people, but when are you actually going to own that business? And what strategies are in place for you to be an employer of labor, for you to be a facilitator of employment equity? Thought leadership, let it go there. I'm just excited. I wasn't going to talk about Singapore and South Korea because I think I've been harping on that note for far too long. But now that you've provoked me, let me go there. As my brother said, Singapore has nothing but its people. It's a city-state. When you see that city called Singapore, you've seen the whole of Singapore. in a very hostile environment, so they say, as I read the 2 volumes by their first prime minister, who was a lawyer, by the way. Malaysia was not favorably disposed to Singapore in 1965 because of the break-off. They had nothing but themselves. They had nothing but a vision that the people were made to understand so well that they bought into it. An unwavering commitment to give practical expression to that vision for good governance and economic development. They sought guidance from the best economic brains around the world to craft the master plan for a viable and sustainable economic development for that city stage. At the time, when many of them lived with goats and pigs in their skyscrapers, 14th floor, your neighbor is busy feeding pigs, your children can't sleep. That's where they were. Nothing but vision, nothing but a hatred for corruption, nothing but ethical leadership and hard work saw Singapore become an economic miracle that it has turned out to be. What about South Korea? Minister Mtatwa, it may interest you to know, as a man from KZN, that South Korea, I ask a lot of questions, by the way, wherever I go, not just about the law, because I want to see South Africa go somewhere. 24 years ago, South Korea, which I understand is the size of KwaZulu-Natal, was many, many miles or kilometers behind South Africa in terms of economic development. And they have nothing but themselves. No mineral resources of note. I understand they only have some poor quality cement. I hope the information I have is true. Invested a lot in quality education, took the equivalent of our National Development Plan very seriously and revised it on an ongoing basis. This in circumstances where they were oppressed by Japan before. So they know what it means to be oppressed, just like us. And now, there is just no comparison between South Africa and South Korea. So talking about the economy, I say, and challenging us purely on the basis of Singapore and South Korea, reflect deeply as South Africans, as members and non-members of BMF, on the breathtaking natural resources that South Africa, and by extension the rest of Africa, has to offer, and the mineral resources. Absorb the reality that South Korea has 200 functional universities that offer top quality education. And out of that, as thought leaders that we are privileged to have, BMF, use your influence that you have so successfully used over the years to permeate the structures of influence in government and outside of government, so that with the benefit of the master plans produced by your think tanks, our government, that I believe can never say no to constructive criticism and good advice, can embrace your advice and on the basis of it, take our country forward. Be critical, but let us not hear from you only when there is something topical and everybody thinks it's fashionable to be throwing stones at government. You are government yourself. And even as you approach captains of industry, have a clear plan so that you never look like you are begging for anything. There is no recklessness. You approach them with maturity. You approach them with a clear vision in relation to what is it that needs to be done to transform corporate South Africa. I'm glad that somebody touched on fronting, which, by the way, I've also had the privilege to write a judgment on. When you front or allow yourself to be an object of fronting, distorting, and channeling the wrong way the benefits of black economic empowerment, know that you are a traitor. This thing has gone on for a long time, and it hurts me because I have some kind of personal experience about it. The only uncle I have used to work for the old South African Railway Services, and they were retrenched. After a while, his former bosses wrote him a letter and said, come back to work. Signed documents, not very learned, believing that he was being re-employed to his old position. After some 3 years, they said, there's no work available to you. He approaches me, I think I was studying law or something, or had just started working. Said, look at what they have done to me. I said, let me see the documents. He came back, he signed documents saying that he was a co-owner of that company that needed him to secure a contract from Transnet. And after getting the contract, they threw him out. But at least my uncle was ignorant. But there are many of us who have assumed the more nuanced, the more sophisticated role of some of the homeland leaders of the past. They are tools for the perpetuation of the oppression of the many and for the frustration of the transformation agenda that BMF has embarked on. Another key area that caused our people to fight one another is racism. I'm touching on these things not because I'm aspiring to some political office, but because they are the truths that we shy away from, and yet they are so important for ensuring that several years down the line, we emerge as a united South Africa, blacks and whites supporting it. Racism, we have tried. Madiba tried. Spent the better part of his free life pushing the agenda of national unity and reconciliation. But what have you and I been doing at our workplaces? I was telling them in the holding room that one of the most painful things that are happening is even elements of self-hate among black people. Or is it? And let me tell you what I'm talking about. I sat in the High Court as a judge and judge president. I sat in the Labor Appeal Court at the same time as a judge of that court. Now I sit in the Constitutional Court. I see who the parties are and who they give work to. I don't mean to embarrass anybody, but state-subsidized institutions, government departments, black people who have money generally, when they give work to attorneys and advocates, it is to our white compatriots that they give work. If you think I'm exaggerating, come to the Constitutional Court. I'll open the books for you. And I have asked colleagues from the Supreme Court of Appeal, our specialist courts, and the High Court. They say the story is no different at that level. How then do you transform when you forget that in the course of being, or in the process of being empowered, you must empower the previously disadvantaged? Believe you me, even political parties, the majority, the overwhelming majority of whom are black people, you must see who they give work to. So I'm throwing a challenge at myself and all of us and saying, let it not be the right sounding words that we speak. The time for sound bites are gone. This is the time for reality check. Your commitment to transformation begins at your workplace, begins even with your neighbors. Many of us here, and fairly well, how many of those disadvantaged, previously and currently disadvantaged children whose parents simply don't have the means, do you take out of your own pocket to take to high school and university? How many? And don't tell me that you can't afford it. Otherwise, you wouldn't have bought a Rolex. Just how committed are we? And maybe just to go back. If people could lay down their lives so that you can be what you are now, and have a gathering like this in town, without that hour that requires you to go back to your township, interfering with your schedule, how much do we remember what the purpose was? And how committed are we to ensuring that we never let down those who suffered? Not just so that we can vote, not just so that I can become Chief Justice, not just so that you can become a managing director, but so that even the lives of those who can speak for themselves, those in the villages who have never known what it means to be educated, can also be positively impacted upon. Good people, I think this is the time really to go back to the basics. We have disconnected, most of us, to that spirit that pushed people to say, no matter what, I'm going to do the right thing. Some of us, it's sheer complacency. Others, it is a sense of I have arrived, so it doesn't matter what happens to other people. I hope none of us, it has nothing to do with the fact that something has been put in your mouth that forbids you to open it and say the right thing. So, as I try to conclude, and I hope I will conclude, may all of us espouse a real transformation agenda that does not leave anything out. May we remember that transformation in your own life and your commitment to transformation must be seen in the lives of those around you. May we refuse to be so comfortable in our newfound positions and luxuries as to find ourselves in a position where our words, particularly in public platforms like this, do not match what we do when those who are here are not around to see what you're doing. May we depart from hypocrisy. May we always remember that if these young South Africans who are manifesting the kind of militancy that we thought had died out, fees must fall, roads must fall, all those kind of movements, may we make sure that we don't betray the constitutional aspirations of our people to the point where one day you'll be marching to me and saying, Mogoeng must fall. Because when I had the opportunity to ensure that the courts that Nelson Mandela was complaining about during the Rivonia trial have been transformed into the kind of cause that our Constitution promises to them. May we begin to look for and actually create platforms for engagement so that issues relating to racism can be debated and strategies developed out of those discussions so that they are meaningfully addressed. Let me go back to racism a bit. I had a white Afrikaner friend. We were so close. Johan and I were very close in Mafikeng. We would drink moer coffee together. We would eat together. So one day he kept on saying, James, 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 and his wife was there. So his wife said, Skati, wie is James? He said, James is a kaffer wat vir Mogoeng werk. That was quite sobering because then we were eight years into democracy. So I realized that this is not something to throw tantrums about. This is not something to take your hand to court about. This is an eye-opener. I, as a South African, who in the preamble to the Constitution of my country makes a commitment to heal the divisions of the past and ensure that there is unity, have failed to play my part. Somehow, like many, I assumed that a very progressive constitution will automatically impact everybody and wipe out all the negativity that was there and well ingrained before we became a constitutional democracy. So my appeal to you and I is, there are many angry African people there, many angry colored people there, many angry people of Indian descent, some of whom probably hate white people for what happened in the past. But there are equally many, many white South Africans who have no regard for black people. Many good ones, but many who are so convinced that black people are lesser beings, that knowing that it's impermissible to call them kafirs openly, they have delved into nuances and the sophistication of the apartheid of yesteryear. I often do this when I address my white compatriots. I said, the reason why black practitioners and women did not get work from corporate South Africa, and white attorneys did not give work to black advocates and women, was because they were consciously biased. But now we have two problems: conscious and deliberate bias against black people and women, and the unconscious one. And the unconscious one is very dangerous because you don't know that you have a problem. When you give all the work that is available to white people, it's a natural thing. You don't mean to be a racist. And good people, it all comes with a solid character. Many of us have faked it for too long. We know how to be nice. We know how to behave as if we have some character to write home about, when in fact there's nothing like it. It's never too late to work afresh at your character, to reflect and reflect seriously on your commitment to the good things that you would want to have people hear come out of your mouth. Let's work on our character let's work on our integrity. Let's embrace ethical self-leadership and ethical leadership in general. When you do, then whatever position you ever find yourself in, you'll be excited not because of the position, but because of the possibility that the position affords you to be of greater benefit to the people that you are privileged to serve. During the liberation struggle, some of the things that used to annoy me seriously is this. People would be fighting over positions. I said, I won't use the terminology that we used then because I'm no longer there. But I'll just say something like, good people, if you are fighting over positions before we become free, what's going to happen when we are free now? When there are positions with benefits available. Choose to be a functional leader as opposed to a positional leader. Work hard for the betterment of South Africa and her people, whether people see it or not. Let it never be about you. Or if it is about you, let it be less about you, but more about the people. That the likes of Chris Hani died so that they can be free and enjoy all the good that South Africa has to offer. Choose not to betray Bram Fisher, all those South Africans who died, just so that you and I can be here talking about transformation and meaningful participation in the economy of our country. The challenge of being a lawyer and being a pastor is that you never run out of what to say. I hope I have said something of significance to you, so I thank you all.